Hello everyone, it's Melanie from Mel's Inky Fingers, and I am here to share this beautiful hand-created embossed overlay for this card created with the Garden Gathering stamp and die bundle. I love this bundle because I love how sweet these little vases are, and you can do so many different things with them. You can stamp them and die cut them. You can just stamp them. You can color the water with ink. You can die cut with specialty paper or with designer series paper or just colored cardstock. And then you can switch up the colors of your flowers and just make the sweetest little floral arrangements using the elements in this bundle. And we're going to create this card with this really nice vellum overlay. And because of the embossing on it, it really elevates it. And you get not only a little texture, but you get a little shine and then just a super cool look. And this card is a great card to make with any designer series paper. And you can pull in the little extra colored elements to pull colors out of your designer series paper. So chop up that paper into several 3x4-inch pieces and make a whole bunch of these. You could take a 12x12 piece of vellum and stamp over the whole thing, and then you can cut it into pieces to add to cards as you need them. And then, of course, I like to carry that design to the inside. And that was done by adding a vellum layer and then just doing a little bit of stamping to pull some color and design inside. So let me share with you how I created this. And then I will show you some different versions I made with different designer series papers. So this Garden Gatherings bundle was new in the May to August catalog. So if you have your catalog, you can look in here and find it. I should have looked to see what page it was on. Let's see if I can find Garden Gatherings. Is on page 59. And I'll show you what was created in the catalog with this. Oh, it looks like this is just the die set. So you'll have to flip in here to see the projects that were created with this. Sorry about that. But this card is really sweet. And this was the featured bundle for the May Creatively Inked kit. So if you're a subscriber, you're going to make a lot of really pretty cards with this. Now, the paper is the Bloom Boutique. And that's a specialty paper. And it features all the new in colors. So this was out of reach. I had to get up and grab it. So you can see all 5 of the brand new ink colors in here, and all 5 of these will make really pretty cards using this technique. So you could use the fronts or the back sides. It's up to you. And the front sides have this extra element of gold foil, which always makes it extra beautiful. All right, so to create this card, you're going to want all your card pieces. And if you are a Creatively Inked subscriber, this will all be listed in your tutorial, but you're going to need 2 pieces of vellum, cut 3 3/4 by 5, and then a 3-inch by 4-inch piece of designer series paper of your choice. I chose this. It's my favorite print in that paper pack, which has the barely blush background. It's just so soft and pretty. And then a piece of adhesive sheet that makes adhering the vellum really easy, and you don't get the adhesive showing through your vellum. You're going to want a 3 by 4 1/4 inch piece of basic white for your inside, and then a couple pieces of coordinating in color pearlized paper. This paper also released with the catalog. It comes in all 5 of the new in colors and coordinates with this designer series paper pack perfectly as a result. So you're going to want 2 pieces that are 3 3/4 inches tall. One you want you want 2 strips that are 3/4 of an inch tall, and you want one that's 3 3/4 by 3/4, and you want one that's 4 inches by 3/4. And then a 1/2-inch strip of basic white cut to 3 1/2 inches. Then I did a couple die cut elements already so that you didn't have to watch me do that, but I die cut one flower from the pearl paper, and that's from the Barely Blush, and then one floral stem, and this is from the Peaceful Pine pearlized paper, and hopefully you can see the beautiful shimmer that's in that. Now let me show you the dies that I used. So you have a couple different foliage elements in your, oh, it's stuck. I haven't had that happen before. So you have a couple of foliage elements in this die set that can either cut out your stamped elements or you can just die cut separately. So this one here die cuts the stamped element, but this one here die cuts this detail element, which is the one we're going to use. Then of course you have the two that die cut the stamped floral and foliage elements. Then your card base is a piece of thick basic white cut 4 1/4 by 11, and this is scored at 5 1/2 to make a standard A2 card. And then don't forget your envelope so that you can stamp some cute little floral elements on that as you're creating. So let's create the vellum piece first because that's a little bit of heat embossing. So what I did is I doubled up the stamps on my block. So we are going to create this vase layer that has the vases stamped all over it, and then we will heat emboss in white. So you will want your white embossing powder, which comes in the Wow Basics embossing pack. It has clear white and black. And then I like to use my embossing additions set, which has your tray, the brush to brush off any strays, your embossing buddy, which is an absolute must. And then you get these really nice reverse little tweezers. And then of course you're going to need your heat tool so that you can heat your embossing powder. So I like to emboss using Versamark ink, but you could also use your craft white, especially since you're using your white embossing powder. So to make this a little easier and to help with spacing, I chose to just add the 2 vase outline stamps to my block, and I angled them so that it gives me the opportunity to stagger. So you could just kind of come across your paper like this, or stamp however you would like to cover your vellum piece. So I'm just going to ink this up, and I'm just going to pick a random place to start. So like maybe here, and I'm going to go off my paper because I always like my elements to go off the paper. And then from there, I'm just going to keep staggering and adding. And I like that there's some space between the vases. And then if you have a gap right here, you can just come in with 1 or 2. You can ink it up however you want, and then just keep stamping until you're happy with how it's covered. And I don't want anything to really be lined up. I want this to be kind of random, and I'm going to clean this, and then I'm going to pull this rounder one off because I want another one of the tall skinny vases there, just to keep it really asymmetric. I don't want it to be symmetric at all. And then I'll clean my Versamark off that. Now let's bring in our white embossing powder. Oh, I forgot to brush this with my embossing buddy. Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to hope that it doesn't stick because the vellum can be a little bit sticky. Not sticky, but staticky. So I like to keep all my embossing powder in these little plastic containers. I find it easy to work with. So let's see how messy this might wind up being without using the embossing buddy on it first. Hopefully it's not too bad. So I'm just going around and adding my powder, sprinkling it over the Versamark, which is a very sticky ink. If you've never worked with Versamark before, it's one of my favorite ink pad. It's probably my most used ink pad. But the ink is very sticky and it holds the embossing powder really, really well. And if you're not embossing, it will actually create a watermark on your paper. So the darker the paper, the more it shows up. So this brush comes in the embossing additions set, which is really nice for coming in and brushing away strays. So I'm going to just turn and blow some of this excess off. But aside from this big one, I also have just gotten a small fine brush. You can get these at any art store, and it just allows you to come in and brush off some of this excess. And I find that if I lightly blow as I brush, it comes right off. And then it keeps your paper nice and clean. So here's another stray over here. Now, had I used my embossing buddy, I wouldn't have had all this. All right, so I think that's good. Sorry about that. Use your embossing buddy. You will be glad that you did. Now, you can choose to use this on your paper, or you can choose just to hold it. It's your choice. And then I'm going to start getting my heat tool warmed up. So I'm going to just start it over here. And we'll let it get a little bit warm before we start adding heat to our paper. I find that if we wait till it gets nice and warm, it helps minimize the warping a little bit, which is always nice to not have warped layers when you're trying to adhere them together. Okay, so now let's start heating up our embossing. So if you've never embossed before, you'll start seeing the color and texture change when you know that it is melted. So I like to keep it fairly close and to just methodically kind of go around the outline of your image with the heat, kind of one by one. I'm going to take this off here. And I'll put it down there. And then you want to make sure that you get everything well, because if you don't and you bump it, it will wipe the powder off your ink. And if that happens, oftentimes you can just come right back in and sprinkle some more on. But sometimes you don't notice it right away. So hopefully you can see the color changing on this as it's melting. Okay, and then what I do is I just hold it at an angle and make sure that I have it all, and it looks like I do, so great. So this is your embossed layer. Isn't that cool? So you have just made some handmade embossed vellum. You could also change up your embossing powder color and make this gold or silver, black. The gold would look stunning over the gold metallic color accents that are in this paper too. All right, so now we have that completed layer. So let's bring in our card pieces and sort them. We're going to have the shorter of the two pieces on the inside, and our remaining vellum piece, this is all going to go on the inside. Okay, so now we have our front pieces. So let's assemble the front of our card. So I'm going to take this adhesive sheet and I'm going to add this to the front of my designer series paper. The reason why I'm doing it to the front is because I want to adhere this together like this as one layer, and I don't want my adhesive to show through the vellum. So this is a really great way to do this. So this piece is just cut to be about the same size as the designer series paper, just a hair smaller, because you don't want the adhesive to stick beyond the edges. So these have some score marks on the back, so you can just bend it and that release paper will pop up and you can just pull this off. Okay, and this part won't be sticky, but this part will. So now you can just take this and line it up on your paper, and take time to get it lined up nice, because if it's crooked, by the time you get to the bottom, it'll be really crooked. Okay, so I'm just going to push this on, and pushing it on well across that seam. And then when I bend this back, I can just kind of push it a little bit and that corner will pop up, and then I can pull the rest of the release paper off. And now I have essentially created a sticker for this piece of designer series paper but it's on the front, which usually it's on the back. This time it's on the front. I take your pick tool and came off. Okay. So now I'm going to use my take your pick tool, and I'm just going to pop up the corner of this and peel this off. So now all my adhesive is on that designer series paper. So now you can do a couple different things. You can line it up like this and try to set it in place, or you can turn your vellum upside down and work from the back, which is kind of how I prefer to do it because I think it's easier to see. You kind of want this centered, and I find it easier to work from the backside like this because this is as you're setting it down, it kind of blurs the edges a little bit and you could get it crooked. It makes it a little harder to see. And once this designer series paper touches the vellum, it's going to be stuck. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. You want to make sure that it's lined up before they touch. And I just find that it was a little easier this way. All right, so now let's put our pieces together. So the first thing we're going to do is adhere this in place. So you can pick up an area about 1.5 inches up from the bottom of your card base. Put a little Stampin' Seal on there, and then just line it up in the center of your card. Okay, just like that. And now we're going to take this layer and we're going to adhere it to our card front. And I'm going to put this on with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'm going to put a few dimensionals on the back. You can choose to adhere this right down to your card front if you wish with some Stampin' Seal. But I'm just going to add some dimensionals to the corners here of the designer series paper. You don't want to put the dimensionals on this vellum edge because they will show. You will see those right through that vellum. All right, so now let's put this in the center of our card. And you will have a little bit of that beautiful pearl paper sticking out on the edges. All right, so that's the basis of our card front. So now let's take our strip of basic white. That's going to go right across the front, kind of centered in that pearl piece. But first we're going to stamp our sentiment. So I'm going to pull in our new Peaceful Pine. We are going to use Peaceful Pine and Barely Blush. Both of these are new in colors, but the other 3 remaining in colors you might be using depending on what paper pattern you choose from this paper pack. And in the month of May, if you decide to join my team and the Stampin' Up! Community, you can get these ink pads free with your starter kit. You can choose the whole set, which is a $63 value when you purchase them bundled, or you can choose to add $35 of extra product to your kit. And they're the new magnetic cases, so they open and close so easy. So let's take that happy birthday sentiment. You have a few sentiment options. You give me hope, happy birthday, the best is yet to come. So you can choose whichever one you want. Now, these are a felt base. They're a little different than the firm foam you might be used to. So I find it easiest to just kind of walk my stamp like this, inking it, and then don't wait too long, and then stamp it on your cardstock. So kind of commit to where you're stamping it, ink it, and stamp it right away. Okay, I offset this a little bit to the left because I want to make room for this cute little die cut floral element we're going to create. So let's close our ink pad. We're going to use that again here in a minute. So now we're going to add that floral element. So I die cut a coordinating Barely Blush flower from the Garden Gatherings dies. This little one here, you could do the tulip if you wanted, but I think this little posy works better for this. And then we are going to take one foliage piece cut from the Peaceful Pine pearl paper, and we are going to snip it here and add the leaves to the back of our flower like this. You could also, if you prefer just having 2 leaves, you could also use just the 2 leaves and cut that stem off, which is really cute. It's your choice. So let's put a little bit of Stampin' Seal on the back of this and then add our flower to the leaves. Okay, and then I want my leaves to be clustered a little different, so I'm just going to take this and kind of swing it in one of the other directions. There we go. I like it like that. And then I'm going to put this on the card front with a mini Stampin' Dimensional so that it just pops it up a little bit. All right. So we'll put that there and then adhere this to that sentiment strip. This is a really, really easy card to create and so, so cute. So there we go. How cute is that? So now we're going to add some dimensionals to the back of this, or you could adhere it right to your vellum piece. It's your choice. This one got a little too far down. There we go. So pull off this release paper and we will put this right down on our card front, and that will complete the whole front of the card. So cute. Oh, other than a gem. We do need to add a gem. All right, so you can center this. I'm going to use, there we go. That makes it a lot easier to center. Now you can save this if you want. I like to put my die cut pieces, I just slide them down in my case because sometimes you just want a little something and you can pull from that. Okay, last but not least, let's add a little gem. So these are the pearlized faceted circles, and they come in 3 different colors. They come in Calypso Coral, maybe Petal Pink, and white, and they go really well. So you could use a large one or a small one and add it right to the center of your flower, which is, so I have learned that it's hard to scoop embellishments up off your glass mat because it's a hard surface. So we're just going to put that in the center. Isn't that beautiful? So now let's work on the inside of our card. So let's pull in these 3 remaining pieces. So the first thing we're going to do is adhere our vellum. So I'm going to put some Stampin' Seal on the back of the vellum, but I'm going to keep it where I know the white layer is going to cover this. So this is going to be centered. Maybe if I can get it centered. Very crooked. This should not be difficult, right? So I find that if I'm not standing up over my cards, everything is crooked. Okay, so you can see the vellum, see through the vellum to see where that adhesive is, but this is going to go on top and it'll be covered. So we're not going to worry about that. It'll be just fine to have that covered. So now we can take our piece of pearl paper. We'll put some Stampin' Seal on the back, and you can just line this up wherever you would like it inside your card. And now let's do a little bit of stamping on this. So since my flower is pink, I'm going to pull in the Barely Blush, and we're going to create our foliage with the Peaceful Pine. So I have those 2 stamps ready. So I'm going to stamp the foliage first because that makes it easy to line up the flower. So again, I'm just going to kind of ink that up and kind of stamp on an angle here off the corner of my card. So there's my foliage, and I'll leave that open for my sentiment. And then here is the Barely Blush. So here I have the flowers. They're 1 stamp for all 4 flowers. Now you can see that you have the flower centers already stamped, and you may not know that until you play with the set. But there is an opening in the center of the flowers, and it goes right over those little dots. So if you ink your flowers and then just line up those 2 dots, all the other flowers are going to be right in the position they need to be. And with the darker ink, it's easier to see, but those will line up just fine. So there is your flower in the center. And now if you would like to add a sentiment to the inside, you could come in and say the best is yet to come, or you give me hope. So let's add our inside sentiment. I'm going to take the happy birthday off and put the new sentiment on. And then we are just going to ink that up and stamp it right in the corner, in the center here. There you go. How cute is that? Super cute. And now we can adhere that right to the inside of our card. And it's going to hide any of the vellum that was used, or the adhesive that was used on the vellum. So there's our project. So what do you think? Isn't that pretty? So let me show you a couple other color variations using other patterns in the Designer Series paper pack. So this is the Golden Glow pattern. So that's this one. And I use the Golden Glow pearl paper. And this one uses the Hydrangea Hue paper, this one. And I use the Hydrangea Hue flower. And this one uses the little Dainty Posy. Let's see if I want you to be able to see all these. So this one uses this paper here. There's 2. There's that one, and then there's this one. And this card uses this one. And I chose to use the Golden Glow and the Crisp Cantaloupe. I put the Crisp Cantaloupe on the front, but then I stamped in Golden Glow to contrast with the Crisp Cantaloupe pearl paper on the inside. So you can see these are all really beautiful, and you can pick and choose which paper pattern you use, and your card is still lovely. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this. Now, if you are a Creatively Inked subscriber, you are going to receive one of these cards already created inside your Creatively Inked kit. So you have a card all ready to share, and you have this card included in your PDF tutorial if you would like to try making one. So you have all the dimensions and instructions to do so. So enjoy.